please, why you don't trust the Taliban?
It's a silly question. Do I trust the Taliban? No.
Mr. President, thank you.
I'm going to take one more question.
Mr. President, have you spoken with any Taliban officials about the withdrawal?
Mr. President, can you please
the Taliban
explain
in Russia today?
Mr. President, thank you.
All right, it was the one time I was like kind of feeling for Joe Biden. The report, it sounded like a pet shop in there. Lots to talk about with our panel. We've got with us Dick Morris, host of Dick Morris Democracy, and you got to go to dickmorris.com. Great stuff there. Be sure to register. And also Craig Shirley, presidential historian, Reagan biographer. Listen, I know reporters are known for yelling and screaming, but Dick, that was particularly obnoxious and weird, and I wouldn't have blamed Biden for telling everybody to shut up and walking out of the room.
Well, you could tell him that, but he'd forget to do it. What I hear in Washington is that he has really deteriorated and that his aides and the party are really conscious of it. There was an article earlier this week, I think in the New York Times, that talked about people on Kamala Harris's staff saying that she's hard to work with, she's difficult to manage, and essentially that she's not ready for prime time. Now, in a situation like that, what's more important than what it says is that the article exists, that it was placed in the Times. Now, the only kind of source that would be capable of getting that in there are people that work for Joe Biden. Harris's staff isn't going to do it, and Biden's staff would and could. And the question then is why? Why would Joe Biden's staff be planting an article in the Times critical of Kamala Harris? And I believe that that, combined with the indications we're getting that Joe is getting worse, indicate that we may be headed toward a 25th Amendment situation, where Kamala Harris and her staff would essentially initiate a 25th Amendment coup, disguised as being in his best interests, against Biden. And what you're looking at here is the Biden staff pushing back against that and saying she's not ready to be president, she's not ready for prime time, don't keep doing this. And I think that that's significant. I think you don't get this kind of a story of one half of an administration dumping on the other unless there's something there. And the 25th Amendment is so obviously there.
Wow. So, I saw that article and I just thought, oh, wow, what a bunch of bickering and, nastiness. But, wow. Hey, Craig, what do you think of that? And we all know that presidents and vice presidents have friction. That kind of goes with the territory. But what Dick said makes a lot of sense.
It does make sense. It happened once before in the waning days of the Nixon administration. The Ford people, who was then vice president, had serious discussions about the 25th Amendment and invoking it and somehow pushing Nixon out of office. It ultimately didn't happen because Nixon shortchanged it or short-circuited and resigned in August '74. But, the press out of control is interesting because I think it is reflective of a White House out of control. As you recall, the White House press corps acted pretty much this way all during the Nixon administration, the Ford administration, and the Carter administration. It was only till Jim Brady held the very first press conference for the Reagan White House, in which he gave instructions to the press corps: they will remain seated, they'll be polite, they will raise their hands, and the president will try to call on them one-on-one. But you remember, all during the Reagan administration, the press behaved better than they ever had been before. And I think that this is reflective of a White House that is also out of control, that the press corps is out of control.
Well, they're out of control in that room, but it's not like they're writing all these nasty stories. I mean, here, do me a favor, play it for a moment. They're lobbing all kinds of questions at them, like we saw, but they're not running to the evening news and doing nasty stories. They're still treating this guy with kid gloves, right, Dick?
Yeah, they are, and they always do. But this is not a press out of control. This is a press under control. The Biden administration's people, Joe Biden's people, must have placed that story. Where else would it come from? Kamala Harris's people aren't going to do it. There's not enough sources in the White House for them to do it independently, and the sourcing of that story indicated it was from within the White House. When you see a president criticizing a vice president, in effect, through the staff, there's something at work here. And the most likely play is the 25th Amendment. Go back in history for 1 second. Biden was losing the nomination when he entered South Carolina. The only way he got the nomination and Super Tuesday and ultimately the presidency was that Clyburn, the congressman from South Carolina, endorsed him right before Super Tuesday, right the day of the primary in South Carolina. There is a rumor that's been persistent that I personally believe that that was part of a deal to name a black vice president. And in particular, the name that's been coming out was Michelle Obama. But the rumor says that she refused, and that put Biden into a bit of a tizzy. And for 6 weeks, he didn't have a vice presidential candidate while the press nipped at him and nagged him. And then he ultimately chose Harris. But I think that the whole effort to put Biden up there was a setup for the 25th Amendment. They knew that he was senile and demented. They knew that he couldn't last in the presidency. They knew that whoever was vice president was going to be the president someday. And they wanted it to be an African-American who was part of their political feeding frenzy that went on during the Obama administration.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember also, I mean, there was no way Pete Buttigieg was going to win a general election. There was no way Kamala Harris could win a general election. None of those Democrats could win a general election. Not even Joe Biden, maybe. Right. Listen, I got to go. Dick Morris, thank you very much. Craig, Shirley, thank you. To be continued for sure. I'll be right back.
See you, Greg.